I'd rather be reading. I'd love to be reading. I wish I were reading. You know what would be great right about now? A good book. Hey, it's Bea, and welcome to my channel, Mama Needs to Read Romance, and talk about December books in January. So it's mid-January as I'm filming this. Show of hands, who wants to hear about Christmas books? Nobody? Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I know you're busy and/or you have other fabulous things to watch on YouTube, so I'm not gonna waste your time. We're gonna start with books I haven't talked about yet, books that are not Christmas books. And as we go down the line, you're gonna hear things I've talked about before and you're gonna hear some Christmas stuff. So, so we'll do it like that. By the way, I'm gonna link the poll below that I put on my 2022 wrap-up video, my fake book awards, in case you would like to weigh in on your favorite books of 2022. I'll post the results of the poll in my January wrap-up video. But without further ado, let's get to it. December books 2022. I read 19 stories, 6 were Christmas novellas, 5 were Christmas books, and 8 were non-holiday books. I don't even know how I got those in there. We're gonna start with my biggest surprise of all, Ice Planet Barbarians. You may remember I did my book hunt video at a used bookstore and I showed off these gorgeous covers of Ice Planet Barbarians and I said, you know, I probably wouldn't like them. And then everyone commented on that. I can't tell you how many comments I got that said, Ice Planet Barbarians, it's amazing, it's great. It's basically, if you like paranormal, you'll like it. And I thought, okay, well, let me try it. And yeah, I'm really into it. I read the first 3 Ice Planet Barbarians books in December. I absolutely understand why people love them and why many consider it a comfort read. You've got a beautiful icy planet and aliens that are not too different, because if it's too different, I think it's a little too out there for me, but physically they're just about the same. In fact, I've been torturing my husband. I'll talk about the Ice Planet Barbarians a little bit, which he does not care to hear about at all. And I'll be like, okay, so let me tell you about these Ice Planet Barbarians. They've got this thing. And he goes, stop! And so I don't think I'm ever gonna get past that. But yes, they're physically very similar. There's a tail, there's some other stuff. Basically the same. Anyway, but they love their women fiercely and they put their women first every time. They're cinnamon roll heroes and I love it. The first one, Ice Planet Barbarians, there's a trigger warning here. They get abducted by aliens. There's sexual assault. It's upsetting. I had to power through the beginning and I would not have done that had I not known how much people love the series. So, but yeah, once they're on the ice planet and it gets going, it gets much better. We have Georgie. She is our first heroine who is brave enough to brave the ice planet while everyone else stays behind in the ship that crashes after they were abducted by aliens. I feel like I'm telling this backwards. Anyway, so Georgie goes and almost immediately, she gets trapped in a snare, and it just happens that the alien that catches her happens to be her mate. There's something called a Kui. It's like a symbiote. It lives inside a person. It sounds really disgusting and scary. But it's not that bad, but it helps protect you. It heals you from the inside out, and it allows you to withstand the different types of elements that are found on the planet. So very interesting. There's a little hint of mystery throughout as far as like the aliens that live on this planet are not from there either. And you get a sense that there's a little mystery surrounding why they're there, but I don't want to tell too much more. One of the things I also love about this series is it's very easy to follow. I am constantly putting in my AirPods, looking around, making sure that nobody needs anything, if anybody's home, which someone is always home, basically. And the minute I press play on my AirPod, somebody's like, I need a graham cracker, help me in the bathroom. So-and-so is looking at me. It doesn't matter if they're looking at you. But I mean, if I miss a moment of Ice Planet Barbarians, it's not a big deal. It's completely the opposite with a book I'm reading right now, A Court of Wings and Ruin, where if someone asks for a banana, I've missed 15 plot points. So it's very different. So I appreciate Ice Planet Barbarians for that as well. It's slower, there's not as much going on, it's about the love. I mean, there is a plot, but it's just a lot easier to follow in my current season of life, so I really appreciate that. So I gave book 1, Ice Planet Barbarians, 4 stars. I liked it very much, but yeah, the triggers kind of took away for me. And then book 2, Barbarian Alien, I gave 3 stars. I wasn't as fond of this hero. He was a little more rough and gruff, which is not my favorite, and I didn't care for how the choices were taken away from Liz is there were multiple times where she should have been allowed to make her own decision, in my opinion, and it was not to be. It's funny, I was talking to many people who really would rather I had not brought it up with them probably, but it's like, I wasn't expecting to have like ethical dilemmas in my mind of like, is this right? Is this not right? You know, it was just very funny, but in the end, it all works out, of course, and it's a happy ever after. But yeah, it was not my favorite plot. And it's funny, I read in Goodreads, a lot of people said you sort of have to power through two to get to the other, what is it? There's 21 books total, so, but it's, yeah, a lot of people, it's their least favorite from what I understand. But I gave it 3 stars. It had some redeeming qualities. I love how they really fell for one another in the end, despite the fact that she really did not like him in the beginning. So, Barbarian Lover, book 3, I actually gave 4.5 stars. I really liked this one. We have Aihako and Kira, and Kira has a chip in her ear that the bad aliens put in her when she was abducted, and she's starting to get some signals, and there's a chance that they might be on the way back. So this was especially exciting. Aihako is my favorite alien so far because he is really funny, extremely charismatic. The thing I love so much about this is they fall for one another without their quees, you know, the symbiotes that sort of drive the rest of the couples that I've read so far to join together. These guys fell in love just on their own. And Aihako saw the value in Kira when nobody else did. And I just loved that so much. So I also got a chance to read The Governess Game, second book in the Girl Meets Duke series. So I may have shared that I enjoy reading more than one book at a time. I like to get variety depending on what my mood is at that point in the day. And I tried never to do the same subgenre because I can get confused. Like I'll do a fantasy, a paranormal, a contemporary, and a historical. I had 2 historical romances going at the same time. One was this one, which I was listening to, and I loved it. And it was read by Mary Jane Wells, so that was lovely. The other one was an ARC, which you may have seen me do my 3-minute review of, Some Dukes Have All the Luck by Christina Britton. And so I was physically reading that one on my Kindle because I'd gotten the e-ARC through NetGalley. So I'm reading these at the same time, and very quickly I figured out, this is terrible. I'm getting these confused. I'm doing both of them a disservice. So in both books, literally, you have a duke who has girls that are wards of theirs. In this one, it's 3 girls, and in this one it's 2 girls. They both need a woman who they fall in love with to help them with said girls. And in this book, he proposes marriage, and it's a marriage of convenience at first. And then in this book, he hires her as a governess, hence the title, The Governess Game. I ended up giving both of these books a 4.5 out of 5. They were really close to the mark. I found The Governess Game to be funnier and a little more heartwarming, perhaps. I loved Chase so much. He's this, rake who needs to be reformed. The only reason I took half a point off was because he was kind of a jerk towards the end, but of course he comes back around, but still, I was like, come on, Chase. But it was really good, really spicy. I loved how he supported our heroine in her love of astronomy. I thought that was really neat. And I loved the piratey relationship that she has with the girls. She encourages them to come around through her love of all things pirate, which was really fun. Now in this one, I only took a half point off on this one because it stalled out towards the end. We have Ash, who is our hero in this one. Ash, who's the name of the first guy in the Girl Meets Duke series, by the way, to get things more confusing. Anyway, so Ash in this book, he took a little long to come around, in my opinion, and I would have loved for him to get with the program a little bit sooner. By the way, both of these dukes have some serious skeletons in their closets. That was another thing. And I was like, wait, who's got which skeleton? Who did what thing wrong? I'm never doing same subgenre at the same time again. I just can't handle it, especially when they have plots that are so similar. But again, like I said, they both had something to offer. Christina Britton's book, I loved the way she wrote the scenery. It was set on the Isle of Sin. It was beautiful. I loved the nature scenes. I loved how he supported her in her love of entomology. I love how our heroine sort of took the lead in this one in terms of the steamy times, and I thought that was pretty neat that she was the one who was really wanting to move things along. Anyway, it was very different. I really enjoyed it, and I really like this author. I'm definitely going to be reading more of her. Now I'm going to talk to you about 2 Christmas books that I have not talked about at all on my channel. First, let's start with Christmas Eve at Friday Harbor by Lisa Kleypas. It's book 1 of the Friday Harbor series. I was nervous about this, I'm going to be honest, because I really did not like her other contemporary series that I read, The Travises. I read the first 2 out of 4. I just really didn't like them at all. I was excited to try this because I love Lisa Kleypas, and then Whitney of Tiburon's Den and we were like, okay, let's buddy read this. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. It's short. It went by super, super fast, and I loved it. 5 stars, for sure, 5 stars. It ends in Christmas, but really this is a fall book. The Pacific Northwest that Lisa Kleypas writes was gorgeous. It was like its own character. I loved that. I loved the way she wrote the yummy food. And of course, I love the way she writes these 2 characters that are flawed, that are coming together. Our heroine is still getting over the grief of having lost her husband 2 years prior. And our hero, he is now in custody of his niece. He barely even knew her before, but Mark's sister passed away. There's no father in the picture. So now Mark is taking the little girl, Holly. Mark is trying to figure out what to do as like the new dad, basically. Holly writes this letter to Santa to try to have a family. And then there's Maggie, who is also on this island trying to start fresh, but she's just, kind of dead inside after having lost her husband. And these 3 come together. It is beautiful. They heal all the broken pieces in one another as they become a family. It was steamy. It wasn't very steamy, I'll tell you that. I'll be honest. There was a lot of chemistries, and that was really fun. But in terms of the steam, I would say it's kind of lower on the end. But that was fine because really this book was so short. There wasn't a lot of time for a lot of steam. I know some people would already be turned off by that. But I really loved this. I thought the character development was gorgeous. And like I said, I really, really liked this book, and I'm really excited. I'm just reading Rain Shadow Road right now, the 2nd book in the series, which I have a hardback of, a paperback, but I'm really enjoying that too. And it is like a soap opera. This series is really good, but it might be a little more women's fiction than just romance. But now I'm getting off on a tangent. Let me move into the next book I wanted to talk to you about. In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. I got to listen to this through my library. I loved it so much. It's Groundhog Day set at Christmas. We have a gal who is in love with 2 brothers, one specifically, Andrew. She has been in love with him forever. His family and her family, and like another family, I think, they come together every Christmas for a week in a cabin, and they do all of the Christmas things, and they've done it every single year. But they find out as they're leaving at the end of the week, this was the last time. The people that own the cabin are going to be selling, so they are devastated. Well, she also makes a huge mistake by making out with one of the brothers, the one she doesn't like as much, the night before they leave. And she just feels like everything, like her job is a mess, like everything is an upheaval. And so she sort of wishes to know what it would be like to have a happy life. And all of a sudden she gets into a fatal accident, and bam, she is back at the beginning of the week at the cabin for Christmas. So there's real time traveling in this. She gets to see different outcomes of what would happen with different brothers. It was really fun. It was really Christmassy. I loved all the characters. I thought it was pretty steamy, and it was fun. It was a really good time. I enjoyed it very much. That was my 2nd Christina Lauren, and I cannot wait to read some more. I've only got one more thing I haven't talked to you about at all, which is The Duke of Christmas Present, which was found in this book. And apparently Meghan Trainor is one of the ladies. I guess. I didn't talk about this one in one of my Christmas vlogs because I didn't care for it a whole lot. I gave it 2.5 stars, and I didn't feel like doing a vlog where I'm like, I don't really like this. I didn't know that anybody wanted to see that. So yes, I was not a super fan of this one. Our hero and heroine have been kept apart for a very long time, despite the fact that they love each other. He inherits all of his lands and estate and all that after his father passes, and he feels like he needs to be the best person to do it. It sort of reminded me of A Christmas Carol, because Scrooge, as he's young, he wants to make sure he's in a good standing before he gets married, and it was similar in this short story. She winds up going off and traveling with her aunt, I want to say, but they apparently really, really, really loved each other the entire time, and they were apart for 10 years. And I felt like if he really wanted her that badly, he could have found her. I don't know. They acted like her traveling with her aunt was the biggest obstacle in the world. It kind of went on for a really long time. For a novella, this was super long. So yeah, I wasn't a super fan of it. Yeah, this was probably one of my least favorite novellas. And now let me talk about some of the books that are not Christmassy that you've heard me talk about already. Feel free to pass this if you want. Midnight Duet. I love this book so much. I got this from the publisher, which was so kind of them to send this to me, and I'm just I'm just over the moon excited that I actually have a real physical arc. I know I'm still fangirling that, but I promise that did not have any bearing on the 5-star rating that I gave this. We have Erica Green. She's a Broadway star who has made some really bad decisions in the past. She's just closed off. She knows she's not a good person and she doesn't really care. And then one day when she's on stage, something terrible happens and she's no longer able to stay in New York. So she winds up in Arizona where there is a theater that is crumbling. It belonged to her family. And I guess she feels like she can be redeemed if she can fix this theater. But she's running out of time and she's running out of money. So she decides to rent out the theater, and a German hair metal band is the one that takes her up on this. They decide to stay for 2 months. They need American culture. They need to try to save the band. There's some upheaval going on within the band. And Christoph, the head of the band, he's the blonde Harry Styles, OMG, love, love, love. He and Erica immediately, sparks are flying. They're both really passionate people. They're both really driven. He wants to save his band. She wants to save the theater. So they're trying not to get pulled together, but they can't deny it. They just can't deny it. And there's some crazy steam that happens while they're trying to deny it. The other members of the band I completely fell in love with. It was great. And there's some crazy stuff that happens too. Steamy and otherwise. There's like a villain in here who's trying to bring down the theater. Epic ending for sure. The author is hilarious. So Erica keeps asking for the same song from Alexa. She figures Alexa's thinking again with the same song. I really, really loved this book. And I have not read her first book, The Astronaut and the Star, but I've heard great things and I've definitely put that on my Amazon wish list. I want to see if I can get that one soon. To get to the other side, that was another arc I got. It was an audio one I got through NetGalley, which I really enjoyed. That was my first audio arc. How fun. And this one is as wild and crazy. It really reminded me a lot of Christina Lauren, but my ears perked up when I first saw the summary. They said it was sort of like Abby Jimenez, which if you know me at all, you know that I'm obsessed with Abby Jimenez. For this book, To Get to the Other Side, we have Trixie. She is in love with a chicken that she meets one day. She's moving heaven and earth to try to keep this chicken and to pay for all the vet bills for this poor chicken. And then we have Bear, who meets her. It's a meat cute. It's also meat crazy. He meets her while she is chasing a chicken across the road. And it turns out he needs someone to share his house and Trixie needs a place to live. So they randomly end up together as roommates and they really don't want to mess up the roommate situation. So that's like their big obstacle. A lot of chemistry, pretty steamy. They acknowledge their attraction for one another pretty early on, but they fight it so hard and it's quite fun. Bear will do anything to help Trixie achieve her dreams. Both of them have some pretty serious toxic things going on. He's dealing with toxic masculinity. She's dealing with toxic positivity. And together they work on those types of things and they grow and mature. And I loved his family. I thought that was terrific. It was funny most of the time. It didn't quite land for me all the time. I gave this 3.5 stars, as you can see. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. And that's pretty much all I have to say about that. And then The Reluctant Countess. This was my first ever arc. It was just so perfect because Eloisa James is the first romance author I ever read. So how cool that it was the first e-arc I ever got. And I didn't even expect it. They ended up sending it to me on the day that it came out. So that's not really an arc because arc stands for Advanced Reader's Copy. So this was what, like day of reader's copy. Dork. Anyway, so this was the second book in the Would Be Wallflower series. I read the first one recently and I was really excited to get into the second one. This one didn't really land for me though because I had a hard time with our hero who wanted his heroine to change. That bugged me. And there was also a big theme about rumors and what people think of you. And he had already dealt with quite a bit of that because of his family's past. And yet he was willing to not necessarily believe the best about our heroine, which kind of bothered me as well. Also, there's a major villain in this. His sister is terrible. And I could have used way less of her. I'm not really into the mean girl plot device. So to have that, I was like, ugh, not my favorite. There were parts of this that were lovely. The ending was really sweet. So, I mean, if you're reading the whole series, I do recommend it, but I wouldn't just be like, hey, read this book. Now I'm going to quickly recap the ones that I've already talked about in my vlogs. Let's start with the Christmas books. Christmas at Carly's Cupcakes. I talked about this one actually in my Try a Chapter challenge of free Christmas romance that I found on Audible. I really like this. It's by Jessica Redland. I wound up giving this 3.5. I enjoyed it, but there needed to be way more of the hero and the love story and way less of the sister. I think this was definitely more of a women's fiction fiction as opposed to romance. Most of the romance was just her thinking about times that they had in the past where they almost kissed or they almost went to the next step. Our hero and heroine were super, super sweet. And I loved how they came to the aid of the sister who was going through a lot of hard times after a tragic, like trigger warning, she was stabbed in a school. It doesn't happen in the book, but it's alluded to as something that happened in the past. It was good, and I really liked how cozy it was. I liked the Christmassy bakery feels. It gave me a lot of those, and it was another one of those similar to Ice Planet Barbarians. I could listen to it and have a conversation with one of my kids briefly while it's playing and not really miss a whole lot. And I looked, and there's a lot more Jessica Redland that's available on Audible for free if you have a subscription. And there are various seasonal ones. And I definitely think I'm gonna try more by her because in this current season of my life, it's perfect. It's cozy, it's cute, it's fun, there's some romance, seasonal. What's not to love? Walking in a Witchy Wonderland. I did a vlog all about this. It's 5 stories with characters that are from the Stay a Spell series. I loved it so much. My favorite one wound up being Charlie and JJ. I loved seeing them finally get together. I thought I was gonna love Devraj and Isadora the most, but that one turned out to be so over the top steamy for me that I was just kind of like, wait. Yeah, but it was good, of course. I mean, if Devraj is in it, it was great. I didn't expect to love the Nico and Violet one as much as I did. I really loved that one, them babysitting the triplets of Evie and Mateo. I thought that was great. It was really cute. Evie and Mateo's was good too, but the side story wasn't as exciting for me. And the least favorite for me, I know you're surprised if you've heard me talk about Stay a Spell series, Gareth and Livy, or Lavinia as he calls her. It was not Christmassy. It was not cute. It was not my favorite. Oh, well. I also listened to the book Slade. I used a credit on Audible for that one, and I was excited because Teddy Hamilton and Zachary Weber were in these 3 short stories. One of them I wound up really loving, a story about a couple that bonds over a Christmas toy that they were going to pick up for a little boy, and it was just lovely. And then there were some weird ones too, like one set in Mexico that was kind of almost anti-Christmas and like insta-lust. It was, I don't know, it was weird. Yeah, they were interesting. Vi Keeland and Penelope Ward I had never tried before, so that was fun to try, and I loved hearing some of my favorite narrators. I wound up giving this one 3.5 stars. And for my last little chunk of this video, I'm going to talk about videos that I already talked about in Vlogmas. In the Bleak Midwinter, I gave 5 stars. Mary Jo Putney, a veteran comes home. He is wounded and scarred, and his woman convinces him that he is still just as valuable as he was before he went off. I loved it so much. Deck the Halls with Love by Lorraine Heath, my very first Lorraine Heath that I ever read. Mary Jo Putney too, that was my first one as well. But in this Lorraine Heath Christmas novella, we get snowed into a castle and it's a second chance for love, and man did they take it, and I loved it. A Mistletoe Kiss by Eloisa James, I gave 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. It was super Christmassy. There was a really neat ice setting like in the wood. There were a couple twists in this that I loved. I just really enjoyed this a lot. Another one I really loved was When She Was Naughty by Tessa Dare, my first Christmas novella by her. And there was actually another novella tucked into this one that I got on Kindle, which was super fun. Our heroine actually pranks our hero, and that's how the fact that he went along with the crazy prank is how you know that he had fallen in love with her. The only reason I didn't give it a full 5 stars is because it just kind of ended too quickly. It was so abrupt and I would have loved more. I'm gonna close out with the same author that I talked about earlier in this video, the short story I Will by Lisa Kleypas. A lot of people love this. I wound up giving it 3 stars because it was a little crazy here and there. It was still romantic. It was certainly an interesting story, very different in terms of a Christmas novella. So that was my December. It was all over the place. Lots of arcs while I was trying to get those done, and novellas. Now I've learned more about what I want to do next December. And there were so many things that I didn't get a chance to get to that I really want to read next year. Or I guess technically this year now. But anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope that your 2023 is off to a great start. I hope you're enjoying whatever it is that you're reading, whether it's Christmassy or not. And it's almost certainly not. Until next time, thanks so much. Take care. Bye.